Okay, hey everyone, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. I have a really cool review for you guys from the brand Tudor. A little about them: they were founded by Hans Wilsdorf back in 1926 as an affordable alternative to the Rolex brand. Now, in terms of the type of watch, this is a chronograph. Some key characteristics and language you're looking for a chrono. Of course, you're going to find external pushers to activate timing functions, multiple subdials to measure elapsed time, often featuring additional scales depending on that subgenre. This is from their Black Bay line, and it's their Tudor Black Bay Chronograph, and it's essentially a chronograph variation of their popular Black Bay diver line, now available in this blue colorway as of 2024. And this is actually a boutique exclusive, which means these are actually not available for direct purchase online. You would have to go into the Tudor boutique yourself, or through some great luck, you could go to Belmont Watches, and they actually have this unit for sale on their website. So essentially they went in and bought it, and now they're able to sell it so that you guys can, who might not be near a Tudor boutique, or maybe just don't want to play some of the waiting list games, and you can fast forward that. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. These actually MSRP for $5,675, and you can get it from Belmont for $6,850. And yes, that is a bit of a little markup there, but I mean, in terms of the convenience fee, and you're not having to buy maybe a watch you don't want to try to negotiate or anything like that. And again, if you're not near a Tudor boutique, that's pretty much your only option, especially to buy it brand new, still in stickers and everything. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, guys, another huge shout out to Belmont Watches, local here in San Diego. But let's take a look at this gorgeous Tudor. Now, in terms of dimensions, 41 millimeters in diameter, 14.5 millimeters thick, 50 millimeters lug to lug, 316L stainless steel, box dome sapphire. As you guys can see, it does have that fixed aluminum bezel insert with that outer scale there, which is great. And screw down crown, screw down pushers, and it still has that same automatic manufacturer caliber MT5813, which is a COSC certified chronometer that beats at 4 hertz or 28,800 vibrations per hour, 8 ticks per second, or vibrations per second, if you want to think of it that way as well. Actually, beats per second is probably the best way to put that. And then in terms of the that power reserve, 70 hours. So very nice. And of course, this is a movement that has been kind of co-sourced from Breitling, and we all know Breitling is really good at making chronograph movements. So yeah, it works pretty well. I will say the previous variations that I've handled in the past had quite a bit of a grittiness to the winding, and from my understanding that is quite normal. This one actually is less gritty, but it also is brand new, so that can also, I'm sure, have a little bit of deciding factor. It wasn't the most pleasurable winding experience I've ever had in my life, but again, that's pretty normal for this particular movement. Now, getting into the colors, I mean, this is a new colorway, and I think it's probably the best one. I know that pink one is really desirable right now, but I think the combination of this 5-link, kind of Jubilee-esque bracelet, I won't say it's a Jubilee bracelet. One, Tudor doesn't call it that, and two, you can see here it has more of an oval shape versus it being flat and then having more of a D shape to it. Now, it's very comfortable from that perspective. I tried their monochrome 41. That thing was awesome as well. And this does actually have their T-Fit clasp. You can see here it has, quite a bit of stickers, and even the tag here. Still very, very nice, new condition, unworn, unsized. But the only thing that's really new here, guys, is going to be the color. And I have to say, as a blue dial self-proclaimed aficionado, the blue here is fantastic. It is deep and dark enough to be very versatile. I find that, you can't go wrong if the blue is a little bit darker, let's say, than the blues that you're wearing. I think it always kind of works out. The nice thing is, though, you're not settling for something that's going to look dull, because it does have quite a vibrance to it thanks to that sunray pattern. You can see more dynamic pops of blue will pop out depending on the way that the light hits your wrist. So I will say this is a very, very nice, versatile blue. It's not overly dynamic. At the same time, it's not, not overly subdued. So it's a nice kind of sweet spot between being quite versatile but still having some nice pop to it. So I think this is a very, very nice choice. You can see it does have that nice sunray pattern. Of course, you're going to find applied indices. You're going to get the pale kind of silvery white subdials, which play off of the dial, I think, really well, add a nice amount of contrast. The lume does glow green. You're still getting 200 meters of water resistance, which is fantastic, especially in a chronograph. But I mean, you would kind of expect that from a chronograph that's kind of born out of a dive watch line. And you do have, of course, screw down crown as well as screw down pushers. Everything is really, really nicely executed from that perspective, nicely signed and decorated. Great tactile engagement in terms of screwing and unscrewing. You're not going to find a colorful crown tube anymore. That's something that they've moved away from over the years. But, I think, again, this is the Black Bay line just seems to get better and better every iteration. And I think it stays true now for the chronograph. It's just this, for me, is like the best one. Unfortunately, it's going to be the hardest one, or one of the harder ones to find, because it is a boutique exclusive. It's not limited from my understanding, but when it is a boutique exclusive, that means you have to go to the boutique, which means, of course, those same type of boutique kind of games that are played in terms of desirability and trying to get on a list and, trying to make nice with your AD, all of those things. Not to the level of Rolex, but of course there is some level of play that more and more people are kind of reporting within that life cycle. So, I mean, that's semi-unfortunate, but at the same time, it means that if you do make purchases quite often, you can leverage that, right? So you're actually getting something maybe out of that AD relationship. But if you don't have a relationship with an AD, you always do have options like this. Pay a little bit more, secure the piece, get it while everyone else is still waiting, which I think is kind of a fun thing, and something that does have a monetary value, to be able to have something that others may be fawning over or waiting in line for, and to have it on your wrist. It's a bit of a flex. It's not everything, don't get me wrong, but it's icing, right? It's not the cake, but it could be a little bit of icing. And if you're going to spend a couple $1,000s on a watch, what's another couple hundred more, right? So those are my thoughts anyway. So with that said, the bracelet, to get into details, 22 millimeter lugs. It does taper down to 16 millimeters in this 5-link bracelet, which is fully milled. It does have screw pin construction here, as you guys can see. Let me see right there. And then it does have this nice milled T-fit clasp, 18 millimeters wide, and it does have that rapid adjustment system in terms of the quick adjust toolless micro adjustment. So you guys can see, I don't want to take off a bunch of the stickers, and there's probably other videos that are better for that. But the nice thing about the T-Fit is spring loaded. So that is a nice little touch that you won't even find in Rolex. So I like that. Also, you're going to see great little details like that there. Let's see. Boom. Ceramic detent, which is nice. So it's just nice and smooth. You're not going to be, breaking any fingernails, popping this on and off. It's really nice from that perspective. Now, of course, I'm not going to size this. This is going to be for somebody to purchase and really enjoy, but I can drape it over the wrist just to kind of see how it wears very roughly here. So cool. There's actually enough extra links to where I can just put it on. There's a little bit of extra there, so if you do have a larger than 7.5 inch wrist, this will still fit you. But you probably don't want to go too much larger than that. Maybe 8 inches, you'd be good to go. But man, check that out. That's a good looking watch. Ooh, drapes really well. Very clean. Of course, it even still has the stickers on the side there, so don't be discouraged if you're not super impressed with the brushing. It's just literally still has the stickers on it, right? So that's a good looking watch. Of course, let me get my wrist nice and low here. So you guys can see on my 7.5 inch wrist, I think this wears really, really nice. Nice and clean, well balanced. And at the end of the day, you know, this is a chronograph with water resistance, right? So those are two reasons right there that are objective in terms of it can add size, it can add heft to a watch. So, you know, don't think that this was as much of a design choice for it to be this size. And, you know, if you have a smaller wrist, don't feel like they did anything to personally attack you. But at the end of the day, this watch, for legibility's sake, for robustness sake, probably should be on the larger side. And I don't think it's anywhere near oversized. I think it's pretty nicely sized and proportioned. But with that said, let's actually get this off the wrist, set up for some loom shots, the light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. And as you can see, very nice. So in terms of a chronograph, you're getting extra lume. In terms of a diver, you're getting what you expect, right? Which is going to be great low light legibility. But one thing I always like to work in is going to be a bit of a low light kind of transitional lighting section, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it's nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. And I gotta say, I mean, it's a looker. The extra dynamic touch that you're going to get visually from just having that sunray dial. It shows you that soft contouring on the dial, and you know, it plays really well off of that pale silvery subdial play. So very, very cool. And guys, I mean, the brushing, the polishing, it's pretty impeccable, right? And I mean, tolerances can only get so tight, honestly, before they become a hindrance and actually make things less enjoyable to wear, right? You want to have a certain level of articulation and give in a bracelet. And I think Tudor and of course Rolex, you know, do have just a really nice grasp on that idea, right? I will say there are bracelets that I've tried that I've really enjoyed that have not quite as tight tolerances, and that makes them a little bit more wearable. But when it comes to just that tolerance to a level of where visually you get the feel of quality, but it still doesn't hinder on wrist. And a lot of that has to do with the design here, right? You're getting the 5-link bracelet design, which is going to add a lot more articulation, but you do have a little bit of, which does add, I should say, to the wearing experience when you do have something that is going to be built to such a tight tolerance. And that is another reason why it's so important for those toolless micro adjust clasps to be made or available on these type of bracelets, and why it's not necessary, or I should say not necessarily a requirement for some other bracelets that are very comfortable and easy to size, you know, without actually having that toolless feature. I think the toolless feature really, you know, shows its worth when it comes to a bracelet that has such a tight tolerance like you're going to find here. But with that said, let's actually get the lights back on and get into some, you know, some closing thoughts here, guys. So closing thoughts. This lays well on the wrist. The dial does have nice balanced proportions, great versatile shade of blue, another plus. And then in terms of model variations, it's also available in a Panda, Reverse Panda. That's, you know, the typically black and white, white and black, as well as the pink dial options. And then this one, which I think looks pretty miraculous, right? And as much as I really enjoyed the Back Bay Blue 39 millimeter, I should say the 58, right? So the Black Bay 58 Blue was such a cool watch that kind of came out of left field and everybody enjoyed. You're getting a similar magic here. It's a watch that I think people enjoyed, but the blue dial colorway and everything, I think, will be the tipping point for a lot of folks. And maybe people who had held off on this piece originally will now kind of have no reason not to engage in such a cool one. And because of that blue colorway, now it's not competing with some of those other, you know, like watches that you might pit this against, right? Namely, let's say the Omega Speedmaster Professional, right? The Man on the Moon, that's going to be something that typically is going to be very monochromatic. Even the Navitimer, yes, the blue dial Navitimer is also pretty popular, but the black and white one is the most popular, right? So this, again, it gives you, they're just so strategic in terms of finding those little ways and little things to add value and maybe convince you to really, jump on board. So comparable models, like I said, in the space, these are pretty unrivaled, and that's more so in the price point and that kind of value proposition, right? Thanks to the new Omega Speedmaster Professional and Breitling Navitimer prices increasing. Those cost more than they used to, right? $7,000, $8,000, $9,000. Here, you're going to have something that I think prestige-wise, not quite historically as significant, but in terms of just relevance, it's right up there, right? In today's market, a watch like this and a brand like Tudor is going to absolutely be able to get you some level of brand prestige, and that is a big part of the ownership experience. Even at a slight markup, I think $68.50 isn't far from unreasonable, and I'm sure some people will be paying way more than that for this. But of course, you have to make it worth it to photograph it and stock it, answer a bunch of calls about. So I mean, anytime there's going to be a dealer, if they can't buy it at wholesale, essentially they have to get value somehow. So for me, guys, bottom line, now that the Moonwatch, I almost said Moonswatch, has become more and more scarce, it's harder to purchase at below retail. I mean, a lot of people are paying retail for that watch. Can you find it below retail? Sure. But the Black Bay Chrono really has become, I feel like, the new default luxury chronograph. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Another huge shout out to Belmont Watches, guys. I've had nothing but awesome experiences with these guys, and I'm glad I was able to squeeze in a little feature for them right now. So let me know what you all think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please do hit like, and if you're already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.